following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, as promised, with former Major League pitcher Mark Littell. How are you, my old friend?
Well, I'm doing fine, Ralph. The season's well underway right now, and there's a lot of things going on, and it's just keep getting better. That's just baseball at its best.
Okay. I almost don't know where to start with you. We have a friendship now that goes back like 35 years. It goes back to when you were a pitching coach at Stockton, California, the Stockton Ports, in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, high A ball in the California League, and I was the tops rep. It was one of my first years doing it in the early 80s, and you did not big league me, young man. And I will remember that always. You were something else. I'll tell you what. It was one of the first years of your non-playing days in baseball. You retired a few years before that and went into coaching. How long, when you were playing, how long before you retired that you knew that coaching was in your future?
Well, I actually took 6 years off in a sense because I had to get some things straightened out. I always wanted to be in coaching, and I kept my hand in the coaching ranks only with the amateurs. And then once I decided to go at it full throttle, that was 1988, where I went to Australia for the first time that fall. And then when I returned, I was the Padres picked me up, and that's where I got on board to go to Waterloo, Iowa, back in the Midwest League. And we had a co-op team at that time. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay, you had several coaching gurus in your life. Who inspired you most?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one. There's a lot of good ones. The guy who signed me was Gary Blaylock, and Gary ended up being the pitching coach for the Royals in '85 when they won their first World Series. And he gave me some very good advice. And he told me, he said, it's going to take you about 5 years to nail this down, and you got to listen, and before you'll have a legitimate plan of attack of what you really want to do, and you still have to also follow the organizational guidelines. And then you had guys like Hub Kittle that I had as a pitching coach. I had Claude Osteen, he was good. Cisco, I had Galen. Good sounding boards. All these guys.
New York Met.
Yes.
Cisco from Ohio State. He was a quarterback at Ohio State, and a darn good one too. Anybody who could play two sports as successfully as that.
Yes.
Got to tip your hat. Speaking of two sports, what are some of the things that transcend from being, say, a football player, you could say a basketball player too, that transcend to baseball?
Oh, you've got the big thing about mental toughness, because you're doing things that you really don't like to do sometimes in some of the other sports, and they're preparing you for what you're doing to make you better. Kinesthetic awareness, that's touch feel. That's a big deal, in baseball. It's a big deal in basketball. Unless you're a quarterback or a tight end, the other guys, they're just big and brawly and stuff like that. They do have to have brains out there, though, to know where to go. But, multitasking in those other sports with, say, baseball, for instance, it's going to improve you. And
it is
going to make you stronger. It's going to make you better.
You wouldn't necessarily tell a parent to have his son or daughter play just one sport and concentrate on that to the detriment of other sports.
No. No, they need to play. They need to play other sports. It's just going to make their main sport better, and they might not even know what their best sport is at an early age. There's a lot to be said about that, but they soon find out.
Is it generally the sport? You've been around a lot of athletes. When you talk about the best sport for a particular person, is it generally the one that they love doing the most?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I think passion, that's the top of the list for me. And, if you don't have the drive, if you don't have the passion to want to go forward, it's just not going to happen. And that's just part of it. I know I played basketball myself, and that you do a lot of running there, and it's touch feel sport, and you do a lot of twisting when you're running and backwards and forwards and every which way. And there's no doubt it helped me with what I did as a player and also a pitcher. Once you got between the lines, it carries over. So it's all good and fun and worthy.
That the recent rash of injuries to pitchers, and it's not really the injuries aren't recent, it's that they can now treat the injuries. These injuries came up, rotacuff and what have you, came up in the 40s and 50s. Now they can treat them. But there are injuries that are new to sports, like oblique. Dusty Baker, for instance, great player in his day, managed and what have you. He recently said that in all the years of his playing, not only was he never on the DL in his entire career, but he didn't even know what the hell oblique was. So, what do you attribute this to? Do you attribute to overwork, weightlifting?
Well,
what is it in your mind?
I've seen the game change from when I signed from 71 to when I got out professionally in 06. And, I'm still staying with the game as well. And you're seeing a whole lot of injuries. I just saw a statistic that the Texas Rangers hold they have the corner on the market, you might say, of Tommy John surgeries as an organization. It's a little bit over 80. And then the Dodgers are down there around 77, and but they're all escalating, and you've got obliques, and you've got a lot of things going on. But I know the one thing is we used to do a thing called the Hofflings, and Gus Hoffling was with Philadelphia, for instance, and he was a martial arts guy, and he had John Denny, who had a Cy Young Award, Carlton, who had 4 of them, and those guys really never got hurt. They had to stay off the table. If they're going to be a Cy Young Award winner, they had to stay healthy, and that was a movement thing. With it was martial arts. It was a synchronized movement. We did it with Milwaukee actually, and you're going to have injuries, but we didn't have too many injuries when we did that. But now you've got so many different gurus out there that they want to say bigger, stronger, but they also pop more, and they break. So there's a tensile strength that they don't really have that some of the older ball players had. I mean, we used our hands more because, your dad said go push a lawnmower, you did it. Your dad said go change plow points, you did it. Your dad said, go do this or this or this, you just did it. You didn't go say, well, I got to go work out for an hour and a half and I'm done. Well, and then I can play Xbox all day. And then you look at David Price, for instance. He had carpal tunnel, and he got that from Xbox. That was about a year ago, that he had that happen. Not quite a year ago, actually. So. Wow. And well, I was right. How'd you get on the DL? Oh, Xbox. Huh. So.
What are some of the?
I'm sorry, IL, Ralph. I'm sorry, Ralph. It's IL.
That's one of the strangest cases of injuries What are some of the others that you saw in your career where you saw guys around you get hurt?
Well, you have the sliding. Of course, you get the strawberries, you get your knees tangled up, get your ankles tangled up. I've seen injuries as far as I've been spiked 4 times myself, and I bled 3 of them, and I got sewed up between the innings one time actually, and I knew there was blood coming out of my shoe. I just didn't want to look down and see it. It was kind of sticky, so on the inside, and But I made it off the mound, and the trainer said, "Hey, country, you're bleeding." I said, "Yeah, I feel sticky down there." I said, "I don't want to look down." And he said, "Well, let's look at it." So that's what happened. And he said, "You want to go back out?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go back out." So I went back out and pitched, and I got sewed up after the game on that one.
Someone whose mom was a nurse.
Right. Yes. Of course.
Okay. That's probably why you didn't want to look down.
Right, exactly.
Smart enough not to do that. Hey, I'm going to ask you about your new book that you have coming out. But before I do that, I want to get an insight into someone who you probably know as well as any of his former players, and better than most, because you were his closer on both the Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals, and I'm talking about Whitey Herzog.
Right.
Okay. He's always been, because I was a Met fan, and Whitey lived in my uncle's building across from Shea Stadium when he was a coach with the Mets in the mid '60s, and was instrumental in developing that, in building that pennant-winning team and World Series winning team, the amazing Mets of '69. His fingerprints are all over the development side of that team, and got to know him a little bit, sitting around my uncle's pool on Roosevelt Avenue in that building that he lived in, and you were his guy. Probably closed more games for him than anyone else. Tell me something we don't know about Whitey Herzog.
Well, it's hard to understand, but I think you nailed a lot right there about the Mets. A lot of people probably did not know that Whitey was so instrumental in the development of the '69 Mets. At that time, Whitey was just new to the administration, and he was working hard to get the right team out there, and he and a couple other guys pulled that off, and that's what happened. But there's not enough said about that. They know about the World Series and Whitey being in the Hall of Fame and all the other accolades that come with that. So, but that early on, '65 through '69, to build that championship team was major, just major. And of course, you're sitting there looking at Whitey today. He's still out and about. Matter of fact, I went to the opening game with the Cardinals this year, and saw Whitey, and of course you saw all the Hall of Famers out there, and St. Louis has a ton of them, so the cars kept coming, and then you had the Clydesdales and the beer wagon. So there you go.
Right, very exciting. How did Whitey change from the beginning of his managerial career to the end? What changed? People grow, they learn. What did you see in Whitey towards the end that you didn't see at the beginning?
I don't know. I tell you, he was always on. The one thing about Whitey was he sold himself quite well. He never came up short. You never saw any glitches with anything he did. I think the only thing anybody gets better at from managing or coaching is they get a better handle on reading people. And from that standpoint, that's the big thing. You've got 25 players, you've got your 4 coaches, you've got a couple of trainers, and then you've got to understand how to handle the media, and all that. It's all churned into the kettle, and then you say, well, okay, who we got coming through the door now, or how many do we have coming through the door that are going to ask some off-the-wall questions possibly? And, of course, if you're winning, it's good. And if you're not doing so well, you got to, kick yourself up every once in a while and take it in stride, you might say.
Well, as you say, so much of it is dealing with the media. Did he have any special way about him with the media?
Well, Whitey would, good, bad, or ugly. Whitey was always on the winning side to some degree, except when he came over from Kansas City to St. Louis, in a sense, and then he had to almost rebuild that. But he did it quite well. He did it quickly too, and but as far as him handling the media, he never had a problem with the media. He was always very good, and he seemed like he always had the right answer to where they couldn't keep coming back, and asking another question, to where they were relatively satisfied with him going out there and giving them a good answer, a solid answer. So he was good at that.
One more thing about Whitey, and then I'm going to ask you a key question. About Whitey, I want to know, did you like him?
Yeah, you couldn't help but like Whitey.
Oh, you respect
him.
But did you like him? Oh, good.
No, I liked watching him manage. I mean, I'd be out in the bullpen by myself. I mean, a lot of us were that way, I'm sure. But I mean, I know I kind of absorbed what's he going to do here, and he's got so and so on the bench, and they got so and so on the bench, and he's going to hit and run here, and who's getting up first in this situation. So you're always trying to think along with the manager. Whitey was always 2 to 3 innings up, it seemed like. And so he even told you that. He was going to be 2 to 3 innings up. So I tried to, to go along with what he was thinking and see if I was close enough at that time to be in his court. So,
he came up in the Yankee organization, and as far as I know, he instituted the idea of having what Casey Stengel had, and that was an instructional league, an instructional team. Before spring training started, he would bring up all the best prospects in the minors, bring them in, and teach him the Yankee way. And from what I understand, Whitey Herzog followed that throughout his career. So he got to see the minor leaguers coming up. He knew what they could do. He knew how to manage them. Was that true with Kansas City as well? Oh, okay, good.
Kansas City was big because they had the academy, and but they were very innovative. They were the team of the 70s, actually. Very creative, very innovative. Kaufman was not afraid to spend a little bit of money right there and take a chance, a calculated risk, and so that's exactly what happened. And
academy was run by our mutual friend's dad, Jim Thrift's dad, Sid, ran that academy. And I got to know Sid a little bit when I did my top strip. He wasn't in baseball at the time, but he was following his son, Jim, whom I signed to a Topps contract back in the day, and he's quite a guy, Sid Thrift. He late after that went on to be general manager of the Pirates in the Jim Leland, Barry Bonds, Van Slyke days. They were exciting days in Pittsburgh, and he was a big part of that. So it is a small world. I know you know Jim really well. I love the baseball road because down the road you run into the same people you ran into X number of years and months and days ago. It all comes together.
Yeah.
Tell me about your book. You wrote one book. It was successful. You enjoyed doing it. And all of a sudden, more stories, more of you. First of all, is there a third book on the horizon?
Yeah, matter of fact, that's I am actually I'm probably 80% through with this thing now, getting her out in a sense. But the writing part is it keeps coming. Fortunately, I have a guy that's helping me edit this. He actually came to me, and his name's Jim Haught. And Jim used to write some things, and he's done a lot of writing. He's retired now, but he worked with Cincinnati and also with the Texas Rangers. And he's also been an editor of 3 different magazines. And so he's springboarded me into this book and kept me tight with what I'm trying to do, and likes the style, I guess, of what I'm trying to do here. So
okay, how does the second book differ from the first book, and how will the third book differ from the second? What is your evolution like? Your evolutionary experience like as a writer?
Well, it's not a thing where I'm glorifying myself in a sense. It's a lifetime type historical book of a little bit about myself. Well, a lot about myself, but also about the area that I grew up in. So you might, coin the first book on the 8th day God made baseball, that it's about, obviously some baseball. And then, you go to the second book, it's called Country Boy Conveniently Wild. There's only one baseball story in there, but I really do like that book a lot, and it was fun writing it. And it's about farm stories that were unfortunately all true. So, and then this third book is called What's Up Ramrod with a question mark. And it's about the coaching aspect.
Is there a comma in there?
Sorry?
Is there a comma in there? What's up, comma, Ramrod, or
well, it depends on which tone I'm going to. I feel like I'm in the mood for that time. So, and
exactly.
That's good, Ralph.
All right. Well, I try. I have to do something to make my.
Actually, I'm probably going to. I'm on the front page on What's Up Ramrod. I'm probably going to put 2 kangaroos, one taller, one shorter, and the one shorter looking up, and the one looking down is probably the coach, and the other one's the player. And the one kangaroo is looking down, basically saying, "What's up, Ramrod?" with a question mark.
You say there's only one baseball story in the book.
That's in the second book.
I'm guessing it must be a doozy.
It is a doozy. I like it best, actually.
You want to talk about it, or you want to save that for those who buy it?
Well, I'll tell you some funny stuff, because it's all farm stories except for the last story, which is a baseball story, and the only reason I did that is so I can lead into my third book. And
okay.
But the second book, when I was 15, my brother was 14. My dad was a Korean War guy, which I've stated before. So he got shot up pretty good, and so he was already basically a little under the weather and short with his demeanor, and so we ended up blowing a truck up with dynamite, by, I guess you want to say accident, but yeah, Dad didn't look at it that way. But it was a red International pickup truck that we blew up, and we blew it up with 18 sticks of dynamite. We blew a stump up, and the truck got stuck by the stump. So we had to go. He didn't want us to
tune it up, and you
cut the cord.
He said, blow it up.
Yeah, well, that's the first time that we got to drive up, which was 10 miles to a little town called Tallapoosa, Missouri. And my mama Sally, who was my grandmother on my father's side, we went in and raided her kitchen, and then we went out to blow a stump up out there, our first one, by ourselves, which took 4 or 5 days of doing a lot of chores. So anyway. And we come back with half of the truck on and all the windows blown out. We did get it unstuck, obviously. So, and things of that nature.
Hey, Mark, what's your writing like? Do you have a set time in the day that you write? Do you take notes when something hits you? You write it in a book, and then in a little pad, and then transfer.
I got a lot of notes. I got a lot of notes. I write them down. Sometimes even in the night. If I'm onto something, I wake up, I'll say, oh, maybe I better write that down, because you'll forget it. And you'll try to think, well, what did I remember last night? And you can't ever think of it. So it's best to write it down and jog it. Just write it in shorthand, sloppy writing or whatever, and something legible, and then try to put it back down, into the computer with your words. And I always write with my words, and I think that's been fun. And everybody said, well, you write a lot like Mark Twain. And I said, well, I hope not, because I always found Mark Twain hard to read. But I said, well, how about Will Rogers or something like that? But I guess, I'll take Mark.
Bad. That's not bad company, country.
No, not at all. But it's in my tone, it's in my voice, and how I state it. So I've got this country flavor, with some American, Irish, and German all mixed in together. And here we go. And I like to hang out with people of color, and I really did. I always wanted to see what the people were like, different. It didn't matter. It just did not matter.
Learn and experience different stuff. That
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean,
baseball has to be hell, because if you're not,
oh gosh, yes.
You're making the same mistakes over and over again. And
something's really funny, Ralph. I got to tell you this before. I know you're short here, but my brother and I also ended up leading the Martin Luther King March in Memphis. And my mother made a wrong turn, and my mother said, "Boys, be quiet, be quiet." And my brother's back there in the back. He's 14, I'm 15. My brother said, "Hey, Mom, you're leading it." she didn't look down. She didn't look to her left, and it was a wall, And so she was the only car on the street where Goldsmiths is in Memphis, and we didn't eat. I said, well, we didn't eat barbecue in Memphis that day, but we had to eat Arkansas pig, and so I said, well, I guess that's good enough. So, and there you go.
Kept you going.
Kept us going. Yeah.
All right.
So
I don't have you long. I want to ask you about the work you do with the veterans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wake Foundation. Robert Wake got me involved over a year ago, and he heard me speak, and he said to me, "Hey, how'd you like to talk to some veterans and things in the VA hospitals and some of the VA homes?" And I said, "Well, that sounds great." And especially since my dad had been hit pretty hard over in Korea, I saw him on a daily basis, with the problems and the issues that he had. Yeah. And they didn't know what PSTD was, and all that. And they didn't know any of that back then. All they said was, well, you just got to get tough, Well, that's not the case, And, thank goodness for my mom. But, it's fun to go out there and listen to these veterans. And, I just listen, and I state a few things about me, and it's not about me. I tell them, I said, I'm just here to, just thank you for your service, and I really appreciate it. And tell them about my father, and, I said, if we didn't say yes, sir, or no, sir, I said, we probably got knocked off of a tractor, my brother and I. And that was just the way it was, as he was a Marine, and you were too, Ralph, So, but
I wasn't a Marine,
in the
I was
Army,
an
airman. I mean, but still in the armed forces. Yep. And and there's just a lot to be said for the veteran. That, and more people should go in and visit with those guys. They really like to be, just talk to anybody. Just sit there and talk to them. And they're loads of information. I mean, they got some great stories. I mean, and they don't have to tell you war stories. And some will, some won't, you know. I mean, just sit there and listen. But, you know, meeting all these guys
what's a question that they ask that say, wow, that's a good question, that because I haven't come up with that today. So you come up with a question that you're asked all the time that you think is a good question. Help me out.
Did you ever get in any fights on the field? And I said, yeah. They'll say something like that to me. Or they'll say, or they might even know me, and they'll say, hey, you remember when you guys played the Phillies and this guy? And I said, yeah, what was he like? You know? And I said, well, as a hitter, you know, he was pretty good. You know, I may or may not, I know how I did against the guy, so I can recall that. And, you know, so we have a really good conversation. And, you know, a lot of them will, you know, tap the table and they'll say, hey, Mark, come on over here and, you know, eat lunch with me or something. I said, okay, you know, so we talk, and then I'll go to and then I go to the music session where they're jamming a little bit and they're doing some country music and they're playing the banjo and all this guitars and everything else. And some lady is up there singing. It's just not men, it's men and women.
For them, that must be so cool for them. But in truth, it's cooler for you.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Well, wonderful. Okay, we'll talk a little baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Chambliss notwithstanding, who was the best player that you held over, and who was the maybe a mediocre player that for some reason held over you?
Mm-hmm.
Who was a great player that you just
I only faced Aaron twice. I got him out both times, struck him out once, looking actually, and then Mike Schmidt was another one. He didn't hit too well off me, and he was actually in some positions to actually hurt me, because when you're coming in as a closer or setup or whatever you're doing, you know, that's the time those guys want to really hurt you and you know, put some runs on the board. I came out ahead on both of those guys. Whereas the other people, you look at guys like Andy Etchebarren, and I said, my gosh, why?
With Baltimore.
Exactly. And, you know, I had heard that he hit Ryan pretty well. And so, I mean, you look at Andy Etchebarren, it seemed like he'd get a dying quail, and, you know, he'd start something off of me. And it was just, he just very short stroke. He said, I'm not going to try to take a big swing off of this guy when he's throwing good. He's just, because he'll just sit down and strike out. You know, that's the way it's going to be. But he didn't do that. He took a short stroke and shortened it up.
Mark, I have one more question for you. Do you think baseball will ever find a place for the Harvey Haddixes, the Bobby Shants, those guys, the little crafty pitcher? Is that a thing in the past?
I think it's kind of a thing of the past, but you know, because you're sitting here looking at all the guys who throw hard, velocity, velo, that's the big thing. But if you look at some of the most winning pitchers right now, I mean, they're below the 95-mile-an-hour mark, you know, and they can add and subtract and change speeds. You know, the pitcher versus the thrower is the name of the game, because the pitcher and thrower, like I've said before, have only one thing in common. They have the same amount of letters in both words, and that's pretty much where it stops. So, anyway. And but those guys, the chances Mark, and all,
Mark, we're up against it time-wise. Will you promise to keep coming back? You've been a regular contributor to Comfortably Zoned Network for all these many months. It's been like 3 years now, and you're so articulate, and it's a combination of Mark Twain and the other guy.
Yeah, Will Rogers.
Yes, and I think of the pitcher with the A's named Rogers.
Right.
And
He's
Texas.
Montreal.
But That's true. Whoa. Under Charlie Fox, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. Right.
Wow. Thank you for blessing the airwaves, Mark, and I want you to keep coming back, and I want you to keep staying healthy.
Yep. That's a big goal for me this year. Just try to keep those 2 feet moving and go forward. So
beautiful.
There you go.
Any time you need to talk about anything, just pick up the phone. Anything that you want to get on the air, you have a microphone to speak into anytime you want.
Appreciate that, Ralph. Thank you.
All right, Mark. You be well. They call you country. I wonder why. You're not from the South, are you?
I'm below Saxton, Missouri, and I'm below the Mason-Dixon line, so I'm close enough.
All right, that's the South. That's close enough. Be well, my friend. Sei gesund.
Oh, you betcha. Bye-bye.
Talk soon. Thanks for listening, everybody. I will be back at you before you know it. The guest is Mark Littell. Wow. Adios.